going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 280. My name is Zach Graham, your host here in the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, and we call him
E.
E, sitting here on a Sunday. Beautiful Austin, Texas. A little cold front coming through this weekend. Pushed our weekend darts indoors. But we sit here 34 days. It is Antonio Gomez Day in the countdown. 34 days away from the season opener. How you feeling, my friend?
Excited. Definitely an exciting episode here. A lot to talk about with our favorite club. 34 days till we're back at the Q. It flies, man. It's crazy how short these off seasons are. And then once you get to the point where it's like the first game is coming up, it just jumps up on you. So
I know.
I'm super excited about this episode. A lot to talk about. A lot of exciting things going down. So ready to get into it. And I did beat you at darts. I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm back right-handed. So your little stint, well, you didn't do too well when I was left-handed.
The last time we played, what was the score?
Correct.
10-2?
I think it was 10-3.
You were left by I conquered left E.
Okay. All right.
Okay, by the end.
Okay.
And last night's 5-3.
Yeah.
Not terrible.
In the ZG home court, it's a little different there. The 3-point line's a little farther back.
we play from the NBA line in my arena. All right, man. Let's like you mentioned, there is a ton to talk about here this week, so let's go ahead and get into it. We'll start, as we always do, by reminding you listening or watching on the YouTube channel that you can support the show financially for free by downloading the audio versions of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts. You can toggle on auto downloads. That will support us in that manner going forward, and you won't have to think about it again. You can also rate and review the show if you want to go that extra mile for us on the audio version. If you are watching on the YouTube channel, subscribing to the channel does help us grow the show. You can also hit the notification bell to know when a live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. Of course, here on episode 280, hit the thumbs up, like the video, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords, atone for your sins. And another way you can not just atone for your sins, but put yourself in the good graces of the soccer gods, E. Join the Patreon, QR code on the screen right now. Again, we've had some lengthy discussions about what the Patreon offers over the last two episodes. You can go back to episode 278 if you want to hear that 25-minute spiel on what we're offering here. But E, when we talk about the Patreon, we got to welcome a new JP. So E, our buddy Peach, joining the North End officially. And of course, Peach, already an honorary member, but officially or making it official here as one of our two new DPs here this week, E, because we had our first upgrade, right? We had TJ on the senior spot. And then he played really well, right? Yeah. And we had to give him a little bit of a raise. So, welcome, TJ. Two new DPs here in the North End. Again, you can scan that QR code that's on the screen right now. Or if you're listening on the audio version, the link is in the description to find out more about that Patreon. So, Peach and Teej this week, E, the North End grows.
I mean, some OGs there for sure. So happy to have them both on board. Like you said, TJ getting rewarded with the self-paying upgraded contract. That's really good business. Take notes, Roto. You make the players pay to play for you.
All right, E, well, this is going to be the biggest news of the week, so we wanted to touch on it here at the top of the episode, but certainly not going to do a deep dive because we think we are going to have a Green Smoke live stream this week for Facundo Torres, E, and right, the those who are familiar with the MLS landscape, rather, especially through the 5 years that Austin FC has been in existence, will, I think, remember at least the name Facundo Torres. And it was Tom Bogert was the first reporting the deal, and he was saying that this deal is close to done, not done yet, but close, around $9.5 million US for the transfer fee of Uruguayan national winger Facundo Torres. He's been with Palmeiras since last season. This time last year, E, Facundo Torres was sold by Orlando City for $14 million. And he has not played worse for Palmeiras. So this, again, on the surface, to me, good business and also very, very exciting from a player perspective. Again, I know I said we do the deep dive on the expected green smoke stream, but holy cow, man. That you will hear me say this multiple times about Facundo Torres. This guy is electric. And that doesn't mean he's going to come in, be the MVP or score 20 goals. But like, this is a very, very high level player at the MLS level. So what was your initial take? Again, I assume it was as positive as mine.
Just stunned, thrilled about this. The last time we saw this kid playing, man, he was breaking the goal contributions record for Orlando for a season.
Yeah. So, and again, they're also relatively young, but still it counts. Yeah. it still counts. And like, I was going to say that as well, where it's like, they aren't the most storied franchise in MLS, but like, he's at the top of the list. He's broke the record initially and then rebroke it, I think 2 years later. So like, this is a great get and something that I'm super amped up about. You keep seeing him framed as a winger in a lot of reportings and things like that, but he can play multiple positions. Yeah. And like looking at where we could move him around, I know we're going to get into another little juicy nugget that we, Crumbs season picked up on about some other people moving around this formation for us. Nothing set in stone really with where these guys are going to play right now. I feel like we have speculation on where Owen's going to line up, what we're going to do with Rosales and now Facundo Torres, getting done. Seems like it's, right there on the precipice. We should say that there are now South American outlets, like massive set, like million follower type of journalists or reporters rather, that are saying that this is done. Medicals will happen in Brazil before Facundo travels to Austin. And they were quoting more of like a $10 million fee. I think that may just be with some potential add-ons there. But yeah, again, this is something we expect to be officially announced here very, very soon.
And like you said, he sold for 14, you get him for like 10, man. I think that's awesome, and the standard of Palmeiras is a bit different than, your Orlandos, your Austins here and everything. And I know that some of their fan base, from what I was seeing online, some of the comments, pretty negative, but good Lord, I am incredibly excited about this. And I know, we're going to do the live stream once it happens and everything, but like,
and we've had lengthy Torres discussions between us already. We have a lot more we want to get into, but there's so much else to get through here on today's episode. I
will hold off until the live stream then for some other commentary that I have on this, but I'm super excited about it. You look at this team now, this talent, the talent floor for this team right now. I don't know if we've ever been more talented, top to bottom.
Yeah, on paper, right?
I really don't. On paper, and we said that last year. Going in with
it was also true last year,
and it was true last year, and then I think this year it is once again true that this is the most talented team on paper that we've ever had.
Well, and the only other thing I want to add before we move on here, is it a coincidence that it was 11 days before we got our first evidence that Osman Bukhari was on the way out, right? And that was when we were on the John Bell Green Smoke live stream. It was 11 days prior to that stream when Facundo Torres stopped making appearances for Palmeiras, and it was not injury related. And he scored in his last 2 league games before December 7th was that final league game he played. I think it was 68 minutes, again, scoring a goal in the 2 consecutive games before he exited their lineup. I don't think it's a coincidence, man. I think this has been being negotiated for over a month now, and it appears like it's about to get over the line.
Yeah, I would say so. Things like this take time to develop. Obviously, the book is tough, needed time to develop it and everything. So I'm with you. I don't have concrete evidence, of course. I can't point to anything directly, but gut feeling about this is absolutely. We were in negotiations trying to get this done.
So I did want to touch on this other rumor that's been percolating around the Austin FC universe here for the last 2 weeks. And this is something that we decided to not kind of chase or like amplify just because James Rodriguez, who is the subject of this transfer rumor, has been rumored to basically every MLS team over the last 3 or 4 years at various times. And but I also don't want that to be confused for us not being intrigued by the idea of James Rodriguez being added to this Austin FC roster. So I did pull up the We Are Austin TV graphic that they put out on Saturday with the latest update here, kind of being what we expected, where like a player of that caliber or that name recognition, that name value that James carries with him would not probably go from making $5 million with Leon last season to $1.8 million or less to be on a TAM deal with Austin this year. That didn't seem super likely to me. And so like, otherwise you pay him closer to that 5 million number or anything, $1 over 1.8 mil, and he would have been a DP. And so maybe some of my ultimate hesitation from never like posting anything about this is that I didn't really want to believe that Roto would do such a thing and put James Rodriguez, who has not been very good and bouncing from team to team to team for many years now, that we would go back to 3-3, the 3-3 build rather with James. And luckily we appear to be right with that assumption. But I would also say, and I don't know if you agree on this, but like, I think if you can still add James on a TAM deal, and I should say for those listening on the audio version, the We Are Austin graphic that we have here on the screen is the Guillermo Arango speaking on the James situation, saying that his source told him, yes, Austin is interested, but they do not have the best offer, or these words were the closest offer, I assume, to what James and his camp are looking for. But if you can add James Rodriguez, right? No credit to Mace on that one. Then I'm down for a 1+1 for sure. I just don't think that's going to happen here, given what appears to be the salary demands of James that would put him in that DP territory. And we know that we just added our third DP. So I this is probably the last time we talk about this. But again, I'm intrigued at the prospect of adding him with the roster mechanisms that we find attractive and not the salary demands that he has.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been disappointed if this was a DP signing. And like, obviously the name is much larger than a Facundo Torres type of name globally, and it's much more recognizable. But I would much rather have a 24-year-old Facundo Torres coming in over 34-year-old James Rodriguez, who, you mentioned, has bounced around a lot as of late. I was looking at his FOTMOP stuff earlier, and I was shocked to see how many teams that he's been on at this point. So in my estimation, if you can get him in here on a TAM deal, I'd take it for sure. But I can't remember what episode it was we were specifically talking about my kind of hesitation in getting a 34-year-old, I think I said 34, 33-year-old, not an aged out completely superstar, but not the peak of what they once were to come over here and be another DP signing for us. And, we were having a conversation last night about avenues and ways that Austin can build again. And the goal has been, since Roto got here, what he stated, consistent winning year over year. We're a consistently good club. What is Austin's best way to build those things? And it's getting younger DP guys, not necessarily specifically DP players, but younger players in here that we're going to be able to hold on to and retain, potentially sell on for a fee later and continue that kind of pipeline. We're not going to ever be the premier destination for these huge, I'm talking, intergalactic type of names that pop up here and there. You saw Son last year coming over to LA. It's not going to be Austin as a first choice for those guys. So looking at where we're at right now with the Facundo situation versus James, I would much rather have Facundo on a DP slot, bring him in here, 24 years old, man. And you get James in, if he's able to, kind of rekindle that spark that he had. I haven't watched him play since obviously he kind of set the world on fire on the international stage.
I mean, is he still living off that fucking
I'm pretty sure
that one goal?
It seems that way. It really does. So, if he comes in on a TAM deal, a good deal, like you said, the mechanism that we want, great. Because I think, again, it adds the talent, it raises the talent of this team. And is he going to be the guy who's night in, night out carrying this team? Absolutely not. But he will provide you with some moments of brilliance to go ahead and be a better club. I'd be fine with that.
Yeah. When he goes, I'm annoying like this with corrections. I believe Facundo is 25. You said 24. The point remains, right? A decade younger.
Not 35. Yeah, 35, whatever.
And some of the stuff about the ages of these guys who we have coming in is going to be part of the North End hype machine you're going to hear on this potential Green Smoke live stream this week, But we can go ahead and move on because practice began this week. And that means that on Monday, right, we had report day and the crumbs out of that from Saturday on last week's episode. But we get the welcome presser from Coach Nico Estevez, and some of the player personnel notes that we had from that are very, very important to this roster build. Number one, Alexander Svatok, who was one of the 5 players missing, or 4 rather, when we saw Riley Thomas later on Saturday night last week. But Svatok was one of the 4 that was not accounted for last Sunday when we recorded. And now Nico telling us that Alexander Svatok absent from the start of training camp because he is back home finalizing the process of obtaining a green card, which of course would open an international slot on our roster. And I think there is a Facundo Torres contract that is about to slide right into that spot because from what I can find, Torres does not have a green card here. And again, we still think that Jayden Nelson will come off that international slot list as well, but that is unconfirmed. So again, this Svatok ends up being the answer. So cash your tickets if you had Svatok at the beginning of the offseason when we were talking through who's the most likely to get a green card. Turns out the first answer at least of, potentially multiple green card processes here is Alexander Svatok. So this is great news from a roster build standpoint. And I imagine, right, the player has to want to go through this process themselves because of the background checks that happen at the government level that I only know that surface level of it. But then I think this is probably a good thing for Alexander as well. It's something that he wanted to go through for himself and any family members. I don't know, his personal side here, if he's got any friends or family, spouses in town, anything like that, but great news.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it signals that he wants to be here. Like you said, for a longer period of time. So we'll see. It also, speculative nonsense, it could make him more valuable in the league if he got the green card and all that good stuff. But obviously I'm not trying to get rid of Spotty anytime soon. So good business once again.
So the next item here, was Hot Air Obrian, right? Was one of the other players that was unaccounted for. And we think we know exactly why he's not there, that he's down in Colombia awaiting the, we would assume, transfer to Deportivo Cali. Those are the rumors. Those are the reports. But Nico did not come out and say that we're waiting on a transfer. He said, and this was different from Svatok, right? He mentioned green card specifically for Svati. For Obrian, he said he's down in Colombia right now working on some visa stuff to get back here, or to come back here, I believe was the direct quote. And that sounds like bullshit to me. That sounds like we are waiting on this transfer to be finalized. So before we talk any more about this, I got to hit the drop.
Rumors, whispers, made up trades, consequences we never weighed. Logic's thin, the mic is hot. Let's pretend this means a lot. Taking shots from way downtown, hoping no one writes it down. Hot takes flying without hesitation. It's time for some reckless speculation.
So I hit the reckless speculation drop to say this. Hot Air Obrian, a half hour before we went live, posted an Instagram story from Ibagué, Colombia, which I believe, looking at Google Maps, and I will shout out our boy Logan Oqua, not the only shout out that Logan's going to get here today. He was the one who kind of tipped me off to this. This town here, Ibagué, and I'm sure I'm butchering that, is kind of in between the U.S. Embassy in Bogota and where Deportivo Cali play. And what is that on his TV screen here? Yes, it is Deportivo Cali's season opening match, which is taking place as we're recording this. So again, if there was any doubt that Hot Air Obrian is going to end up with Deportivo Cali, I think we can put that to rest. But my speculation begins with, why is this not done yet? And are we seeing Roto take on a potential strong arm attempt from Hot Air Obrian's camp and Deportivo Cali? Because we talked about the release clause that was reported on last week and how that was something that Cali was, again, South American sources saying, reportedly working hard on to work through with Austin, with Roto. And look, man, if Hot Air Obrian's camp knows the rules and Deportivo Cali front office knows the rules of MLS, they will know that Rodolfo Borrell has 2 contract buyouts in his back pocket. And if you do not want to pay the release clause for Hot Air Obrian or a transfer fee for Hot Air Obrian, and Hot Air Obrian wants to get his payday from Austin FC and go play for Deportivo Cali. How do you do that? You hold out, you don't do a transfer, and you make Rodolfo Borrell and Austin FC exercise a contract buyout on Hot Air Obrian. Again, just speculation right before we hit record here today, but I don't think that's crazy. Nope. And I think this is potentially a huge test for Rodo because we don't know. We'd like to think that one of Ilie Sanchez or John Bell is on a salary low enough where they can be bought down to the supplemental roster once February 20th rolls around, that roster compliance date. But if those guys are on the senior roster, and right now the facts we know are the team says those guys are on the senior roster at present, then we're one out, one in, rather. And you cannot get Facundo Torres onto this roster as it's presently constructed, right? Again, you can sign him. You just have to be compliant by February 20th, the day before the season starts. But this could drag out here. I hope I'm wrong. But I think this, unfortunately, has the potential to be the first time we see Rodolfo Borrell get beat at the negotiating table. I think it's possible. Again, I hope not.
I mean, I don't know if beat is the right word, right? Because you ultimately win by getting Facundo Torres in here, and I don't think you're going to be held up by Hot Air Obrian.
You just don't have the cards here.
Exactly.
I don't think.
No, he does not have the leverage in this situation. With this news coming out and it looking like a done deal with Facu, man, like we got to get this spot open. And Hot Air, like you mentioned with the Nico quote and everything and some stuff we've seen from him in the past and his obviously lack of production last season and, his glaring kind of contract hit that this was going to be one of the most, probable players to be on the outs here. And there's no way that, Deportivo Cali doesn't know this stuff. There's just no way. It would be gross negligence to not know how the other league could operate and how you can get this guy.
I mean, San Jose forgot to pick up Christian Espinosa's option. The crazier things have happened.
For sure.
But I agree with you.
Yeah, it seems pretty probable, man, that they're going to be trying to make this as advantageous as possible for their club. And Hot Air, like you said,
it just sucks.
Yeah, of course. And you're not going to win them all for sure. And Hot Air, the incentive for him to get paid with that buyout is huge.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, again, this is reckless speculation here. I think you could also speculate that because we are now hearing that the Torres deal is about to cross the finish line, that maybe the Obrian deal is as well. And maybe we get an Obrian sale or some sort of agreement in the middle there where the buyout is not exercised. And that would be great.
Yep.
Because Hot Air Obrian, in a situation where we have a transfer fee, and I'm not sure if this applies to a release clause or not, but if there is a transfer fee, the player is entitled to 10% of that as compensation. So Hot Air can get a payday either way, but the payday would be bigger if you get the $500,000 in the buyout from Austin. And it would be north of that, right, with the contract escalators that are built in there. I think it's minimum 10% of the contract escalating every single year. So we'll keep our eyes on this. But again, that's just kind of thinking this through before we hit record here. It's not over, though. It does. Again, it seems like we'll end up with Hot Air, with Deportivo Cali, but I just hope we can get there the most advantageous way for our favorite team as possible.
Yep, for sure. It just looks like it's done, that he's out of here.
Yeah. So the last kind of player personnel thing, obviously we knew Jayden Nelson was out at Canadian camp out there in California these past 10 days. And so Nico did mention that Jayden was in town by January 3rd of this month, getting things organized here in Austin with his personal life, with the team, doing some individual training with the staff before he took off, I believe, on the 7th to go join the Canadian team in California. So that friendly we talked about, that took place last night. You and I got to watch, 8 to 10 minutes of it. And I will say the most impressive thing to me about Jayden in the short stint that we watched of this match live was the defensive effort and the defensive contributions. He single-handedly sprinted back and cut out a Guatemala breakaway in the first half of that one. But he kind of contributed all across the pitch, 81 minutes in this friendly for Canada, took one shot that was on target, completed 26 of his 32 passes. That's an 81% clip, created 3 chances and had 3 noted defensive contributions in the box score, 4 touches in the opposing team's box, 3 passes into the final third. Again, those were probably all those chance creating actions. Again, it seemed like from the little bit we saw, the stats, and then one of the recaps that our buddy Tim Thompson, the stat man, posted in a group chat. This is the end of a blurb from a Canadian journalist analyzing last night's match. He said, in the end, though, Jayden Nelson's performance serves as a good barometer for what some of the younger players who were not able to impress as much as hoped will look to follow going forward. So those who did watch the full outing, all 81 minutes of Jayden Nelson, were thoroughly impressed there, again, in a friendly against Guatemala. So seems like it went well. No reports of any injuries, stubbed toes, anything like that. So we should see Jayden back at practice here this week.
Exciting. Excited for him, man. Be able to represent your country like that. That's awesome. So, he's been lost in all of this, really, and how excited we were when he came across the board as well, partially due to you calling that shot and everything. But still, we were amped up about him. It kind of gets, mirrored with the Buka news coming through and everything. But super excited about Jayden Nelson. I think he's going to be a high impact player for this team next year.
So other things from Nico's presser, I think the first thing he did was thank Alex Sanabria from We Are Austin TV, who's moving on. So look, that is a loss for the Austin FC independent media space and the fans that are diehard enough to follow outlets like ours and like We Are Austin and all of that stuff. So I thought that was really cool on Nico's part to recognize that. And I think it showed some of that mutual respect that Nico has for Alex and his work. So I think Alex, you would second me saying that he'll be dearly missed in our Austin FC universe. And of course, always welcome back. I think I caught that he's moving to Spain. So best of luck to Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like a fun adventure going over there to Spain and stuff like that. But a lot of great contributions from him. Very cool for Nico to give him a little shout out there.
Absolutely. And so then Nico pivoting to talking about the roster, he said, quote, "We're on the right path. Obviously, there are still areas and spots to fill." And then he went on to say, "I think last year, right, talking about last offseason, we were very quick on doing everything. This year, the market has changed a little bit. We were able to do quick movements before January, and now we have to be very thorough about what movements we are going to make next to strengthen the team. We want to have a better roster. We want to have a better team, and this is..." Roto can help you with more detail on that. He almost went into the plans, right? And then said, no, we'll defer to Roto. But that was comments made on Monday. So, of course, we've already talked about the Facundo Torres stuff. Like, obviously, Nico knew about this plan, that it was about to come to fruition. And again, I also don't think, once you get Obi out of there, I don't think we are necessarily done just adding Facundo Torres. But that was something that gave me a lot of hopium on Monday. I just didn't know it would be fulfilled so quickly by Friday. Where Facundo Torres, again, like you can see the excitement shining through for the name value of that player. But there was also some other points about our players here, that we know were accounted for. Mirtu Azuni, calf injury, that was discovered in medical testing. Nico did not sound really bothered by this at all. Sounded like he was just going to kind of sit out the first week, maybe do some individual non-contact stuff, and like take a couple days off and be back. Seemed like there was no worry there. But the other one that surprised us was that Owen had a doctor's appointment, so he wasn't at practice on Monday. They were checking in. It was a final checkup on an injury that he had dealt with last season. Then on, I want to say it was Wednesday, the team puts out a press release that Owen Wolff underwent a successful operation on Tuesday to address a sports hernia and is estimated to make a full recovery by mid to late February. So again, you don't want to see a guy like Owen Wolff missing the entire preseason.
Yeah.
I also don't think that Nico sounded worried at all about this. And in the press release, the team saying that Owen is estimated to make a full recovery by mid to late February is like, maybe he's coming off the bench in that last Coachella game. And at the very least, I think available and coming off the bench in the opener. And like full recovery could also mean starting the opener and maybe not going full 90. So it's something that we'll keep our eyes on, of course. Owen's return to play protocol here, and hopefully we see him getting some minutes out there at Coachella. So not ideal, but again, I don't think it's something we really need to worry about because the sports hernias, right? Of course, we go looking to all kinds of trying to play internet doctor with this. Like, okay, is this actually bad? It's something I believe that most medical staffs would want you to try to heal by just rest and recuperation. And that makes sense over the off season, that if it's a procedure that is basically a month off here with the timeline that they've given us, again, it doesn't seem like something that they're all too worried about, and full recovery. So again, are you worried about this? Like it stinks, but
yeah, I don't think I'm worried. Obviously not ideal, right, of course, but definitely not worried. He's a young guy. I would imagine, he's going to bounce back pretty quick and hopefully be available, ready to roll once the season comes along and everything like that. I want to jump back to some Nico stuff a little bit here and talking about, who's coming in and his comments about upgrading the roster and whatnot and everything. And I think maybe last week or the week prior, I was saying that, one of my storylines that I'm really looking at is BV. And I thought that would be one of the most interesting storylines, but I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Nico this season. Now, we already talked about that we believe on paper that this is the most talented roster we've ever had. We said that last year as well. And then you saw the lack of offensive production. And we know Nico's track record's not coming in here, having set the world on fire, won a bunch of, hardware at his previous stops. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on him this season coming up. And I hope that he's able to work these new guys into however we're going to play this next season. I do think it's going to be more exciting, but a lot of pressure on him. So I'm glad to see that he's, in good spirits. Also, obviously hadn't dealt with the loss of his mother as well. So that's, got to be hanging on him still. But I'm interested to see how Nico responds this season with the guys that we got here now.
Well, I second that because what I told you last night when we were discussing the Torres acquisition and the team. And I will say this again on the live stream, and I'm sure multiple times leading up to the season, man, but this is make or break here for Nico Estevez with Austin FC, because who's leaving first, Roto or Nico?
Yeah, of course. Yep. I don't know if I want to go make or break right now because obviously – he's
up. He's got an option. Nico's on 2+1, so this is a contract year technically.
Interesting.
Or it's an option year.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the heat's really on then.
Yeah.
Because you're right. There's no way we're getting rid of Roto before Nico. There's no way.
And again, I hope we don't have to. I hope those guys are lifting trophies together.
Yeah.
Right. But just thinking about, again, we can discuss that maybe after we get our third DP in here officially.
Yeah. Or after, game 14.
Right.
It'll be coming up again.
Yeah. Anything else for you on the Nico comments, Mir to Owen, anything like that?
Nope. Not worried about those things very much at all. Like you said, the Uzuni calf thing seems pretty standard. The Owen thing, young, will be good.
Yeah. Well, I guess we should include this in player personnel, not really news, but just observations. Brandon Vasquez is out there doing all the non-contact drills, which shouldn't surprise us at all, right? If you think about it, because to this point, he's right on track. We got confirmation from him personally last week that he's right on track for the timeline that we expected a week after the initial injury. So I think it's of course, he's doing non-contact drills now, less than 3 months from when he's supposed to be playing MLS minutes, right? So I think we should see by the time the season starts, I think is when we start to see Brandon Vasquez get into more contact drills, live action in practice, right? Because I think you probably need 5 to 6 weeks ramping up to even be ready coming off an ACL of that type of training and drill work, right? To get ready to play MLS minutes after, 3/4 of a year off. So again, it seems like everything's right on track. And great to see BV out there, again, looking like Superman on the training facility.
Yeah, not surprised, but still a very welcome sight to see him out there getting back into the flow and the groove of everything like that. So looks like everything's been going as planned, very smooth. Love that.
Yeah. Well, then Dani Pereira was the player made available to the media assembled there on Monday. And this is, again, maybe nothing. And I'm probably, like I tend to do with almost everything involving this team, reading entirely too much into this. But Dani mentioned, right, he was asked about some of his new teammates, and right, it's first day of practice, so there's not a ton to draw from. But Dani mentioned Joseph Rosales' ability to play in the midfield, saying I've played against him while he was in the midfield multiple times. And so again, I just think that is just another little sprinkle of a crumb to the idea that Joseph Rosales might be playing in the midfield for us more than we expect. Like, I think the consensus is, and rightfully so, and I'm here as well, that like in the perfect world, Joseph Rosales is playing left back, where he has been very successful in MLS for the majority of his appearances over the last few seasons. But it's now the club in the press release, and then Dani, unprompted, saying that he can also play in the midfield, right? Like, I don't think we should be shocked if we see Joseph Rosales line up in the midfield, even on opening night, dude.
I agree. And, you know, when we were looking at it prior, and we did bring that up and mention that he can play several different positions out there. And then we get some of the sprinkles and crumbs around Biru, right? Yeah. But now it looks like, you know, the Guilherme stuff has died down, really. And, like, if you have both of those guys on the team, Guilherme not as versatile as Rosales, not going to put him in the midfield.
Right.
So, like,
Guilherme would say he could do it.
Of course, so he'd be in the stands because he'd be so pushed forward that he wouldn't be on the field. But having both of those guys, right? We know Komenich as well. You know, there's some depth there in that left back position, and if Rosales is the guy who's talented and capable enough to be moved around, then I think you're putting your best foot forward with Guilherme on the left and then Rosales somewhere in the middle. If you're not going to bring in another one of these, you know, the Jameses or what have you, another TAM level player in the midfield. So I'm interested to see how this team is going to line up. I really, really am, because we talked about the fit with BV and Azuni and that it's not a perfect fit. It's not an ideal fit, but they're trying to make this work somehow. And I think with all we've seen from the signings, obviously getting Nelson, Facundo and Rosales as well, man, they're going to be trying something that I don't know if we're privy to right now, that we can really speculate on.
Dude, I think bringing Facundo in makes me think the 4-back is now the more likely defensive alignment. Because you got you bought Jayden Nelson, or you traded for Jayden Nelson, you bought Facundo Torres to fucking start. And those guys again are playing on the wings. You're not benching Owen Wolff.
Nope.
Right? So again, and that's, I think these are good problems to have, right? And it's a problem for Nico Estevez and his coaching staff to figure out, getting back to that point.
Yep, going back to that. He's got to figure this thing out. And we talked about one of the things that we really, really love, and not to jump back to Buka again, but like the connection between him and Dessler. And now looking more like this team with having the 4-back going forward, you could see that between Torres and Dessler as well. I hope that relationship, blossoms the way that the Buka one did. But yeah, there's a lot of questions that are going to be answered. So that's part of the reason why I'm so excited to see how this team is going to line up. And to your point, being a good problem, I do think it gives us a little bit more versatility to change lineups, change formations, schemes, depending on players, depending on who's available, depending on who we're playing.
Yeah, and I think like you also got to remember going back to and just finishing this up with the Biru, Komenich still being there, right? If Rosales is starting at left back in a 4-back, then those guys are not starting, right?
Yep.
Keep in mind the Leo Väisänen rule that until the window is closed, guys can still be moved. And I think it is a non-zero chance that one of Biru or Komenich find their way out by the end of the window.
It's just a different scenarios, right? Väisänen obviously not performing, meeting the expectations that we had for him. And those two guys took their biggest steps last season in Komenich, Big Tex there, and Biru.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like different situations, but yes, we are still of the mindset that this is not done. Things are still being processed.
So some other crumbs from training this week here, and shout out to, I don't know who else was posting, Moon Tower, We Are Austin, some of the other kind of the legacy media outlets who, of course, they all show up on opening day. Where are you guys week 17? But here's some of the crumbs we got from guys walking out. There's Patrick Kaeli, right? So you saw Stefan Dobrjevich and Patrick Kaeli, the 2 draft picks out there. And Patrick, dude, it appeared like he got second in the beep test. Jon Gallagher was back in there this year, right? Held him out last year as the back-to-back champ. So John, 3 titles in the last 4 years in the beep test, and the 1 year he missed, he was exempt. But dude, Kaeli getting second was like a little bit of an eyebrow raiser for me, because that doesn't say anything about his soccer talent. But like clearly the conditioning is there to be a pro. If you're John, you're the only guy beating you out is Jon Gallagher here on opening day of practice rather. Like, I think we're going to see a lot of Patrick Kaeli in that midfield for Austin FC 2 this year.
Would agree.
Other guys walking out there. We had some jersey crumbs. We had some young guys. John Bell, as expected, right, wearing that 15 that was vacant here for Austin FC. That's what he wore last 2 years with Seattle. Joseph Rosales comes in and takes the 30 here. So 15 for John Bell, 30 for Joseph Rosales. For those of you who are going to look to customize your kits, more kit talk here in a minute, and then some of these young guys. This one stuck out to me because you could see some of our more recognizable first-team supplemental guys. I believe that's Chuy Moreno with them as well on the left. But this tall guy here, who I believe is 6'2", Sebastian. I apologize, Sebastian, for probably butchering your last name, but Saterly. And Sebastian is a U18 Academy member at the moment, but he came up through the San Antonio FC Academy and was called up to their first team. I don't believe made an appearance, but was on the bench for their first team early last season. And then shortly following that came and transferred to Austin FC's academy. So he's been with the U18s over this last year. But I think it's quite notable that Sebastian is, I think, the only guy that's out here at Monday's practice that was confirmed like an academy guy that has not been on one of those amateur agreements with Austin FC 2. So I think we should expect that for Sebastian when the second team announces their amateur agreements here this year, that he will be one of those guys that is able to bounce between the second team and the academy as needed. And clearly a guy that we went out as an academy and got, right, plucked from San Antonio because they were starting to pay attention to him at their first team level. So, again, one of these academy guys, another one of these academy guys for us to have our eyes on.
Yeah, I'm just going to say excellent crumb work here. Very well done.
Well, and I don't know if we're working on the Boy Factory drop there. So shout out to Landon. I don't think I told you that one, but we could talk about it.
Yeah,
it was just a Moon Tower from last week. Yeah. The Boy Factory. So moving on here, the news was not done for the week. Another extension gets done here. Jon Gallagher signs a new contract. This is, I believe, on the same timeline as Dani Pereira's new deal, signed guaranteed through the 27-28 season with an option for 28-29. So if we're talking MLS seasons and not just total years, this is a 3+1 for Johnny here. Two things. Number one, this reads to me, because Jon Gallagher now is a backup, right?
Yep.
Like, if everything is going according to plan for our roster, he's a backup at potentially multiple positions, but especially right back there with Mikael Dessler. John's 30 now, I believe, and so this will take him through his age 32 season. This doesn't read to me like he's going to be getting a giant raise with this. This seems like maybe either a very similar salary or maybe even slightly lower for more guaranteed years on the deal, right? Because he was coming up, I believe he would have had an option for the sprint season in 2027. But the second point is, this is now 100% a Rodolfo Borrell team. Every contract on the books has been signed under his stewardship as the GM here, or sporting director, right? Bouncing between sport nomenclature. But love to see this because John is still very much, I think, an above average backup in this league. Because how much did we have to rely on him last year? I know we went through periods where like we, and certainly you, were less than impressed with some of his performances, but like for the role that we think John is being counted on for on this roster, this feels like great news because the guy is still out here winning the beep test, right? Is he as fast as he was when he was 26 and first got here? Probably not, but still, I think a very, very high floor MLS asset here. And again, also a great dude. So like, I love this. Yeah,
absolutely. I love it as well. And I know that I was pretty critical of John last season. But yes, if he's in this backup role that he fits very well. And like you said, I think he is an above average role player in the league. I definitely think that he is that. His versatility, his ability to move around a little bit, I think makes him a little bit more valuable. But obviously, he's going to be, an Austin FC lifer here with this extension. And I'm with you on that. He's not getting a raise. I don't think This is just more of I'm going to be able to be guaranteed money, going forward with this contract extension for Johnny. So congrats to him. Definitely love to have him back. And a locker room guy, you know what I mean? A good locker room guy to have for your team. There's been moments in the past where I know that he's been, outspoken about holding players accountable, holding, coaching staff accountable and stuff like that. And that's a good thing in my book. So I'm happy to have Johnny here. And I know that a lot of the fan base is thrilled that he's going to be around here for 3 more seasons potentially.
So next here, we have the road kit, the new away kit, leaked. And like we say, technically these are leaks because they are not coming out officially from the team, but these are very much team sanctioned releases here. So this was the Mundial mag that released these 2 pictures. You can see kind of on I think that's the neck right there, right? It says rooted in ATX. So potentially the Roots kit, I don't know. You also get, right, there's the little tag on the shorts there, or on not the shorts, the kind of the left side of the bottom of the jersey there with the tree. And then I think that's the Congress Bridge in the background. And then I think it was Friday or Saturday, KUTX on their Instagram posts the full thing. And this is musician Annabelle Chairlegs, who is modeling the kit here in this post. So you can see, and this looks a little bit lighter in terms of the greens on there than I expect. That could be the lighting there at KUTX, right? Like we've stood back in that studio. We were watching Black Joe Lewis, I think, one time there. And so I'm going to reserve judgment, I think, until like we typically do until we see these physically in person. But I don't know, man. I like this. It's kind of a return to a mixture in my eyes between like the mint kit and the OG Verde and Black stripes. And I'm with it at the time here. So we'll see how it looks in person. But and I like the way that they've done this here. We kind of, again, these like kind of state sanctioned releases of the kit, right? Where we can just find them organically a little bit from people who are following these outlets. And then it spreads like wildfire through the fan base. So there's your new kit.
Yeah, I will say, I'm going to reserve a little judgment because I don't think this is the best picture of it because the 2 from the moon dial, what did you say there?
Moon dial?
Yeah. Those
uncultured podcast.
This looks much nicer, with that green. And I was going to say the same exact thing. A little blend with the mint there, although that does look pretty light there.
Yeah,
that does look pretty light. But either way, the checkbook will be opened.
Yeah.
It will be acquired.
A little bit of a schedule update here, That road match at Toronto FC that is scheduled for Saturday, April 18th, and originally going to kick off at 6:30 p.m. Central. Now will kick off at noon Central. So probably a little warmer in Toronto in April at noon compared to when the sun is down up there. But will certainly be an early one for us that aren't making the trip and sitting at home here in Austin. And watching at, some of our watch parties, right? I'm sure the LV watch parties are coming back, right? All that good stuff. So, again, 34 days away from that season opener. But noon game here on Saturday, April 18th.
Okay, good deal.
So, I guess the last thing I wanted to talk about here on the first team side, which, does kind of relate to us, especially when we remember some guys or some coaches. Josh Wolff hired by Minnesota United. And so first of all, that spices up the season opener a little bit more because you pointed out last night on our side of things, that's a Joseph Rosales revenge match right off the rip. But then Josh Wolff coming to Q2 here. And we know that Josh was kind of in the booth, right, when he was with Houston. Now that he's with Minnesota, who continue to have what I think is a pretty disastrous offseason, that really started with the Tani Oluwaseyi sale, but things have gone really sideways for them over the last month or so. Eric Ramsey, their coach, went back to Europe. I think now he's coaching West Brom, you said, right, in the championship. So again, clearly the view on Ramsey, they thought he did a pretty darn good job here with Minnesota. But now Cam Knowles, who, if I recall correctly, was their second team coach. And then last year, I think it was 2 years ago, rather, before Eric Ramsey came in, they had hired a head coach who never coached a game and he quit. And then before Ramsey got here, Knowles was the interim. I think Knowles was kept on as an assistant last season. He's now their head coach. And the way that their offseason has gone player personnel-wise, I think they could really stumble here this year. And I think if things start to get ugly in Minnesota, you might see Cam Knowles relieved of his duties and Josh Wolff interim. So again, we can keep that under the reckless speculation umbrella for episode 280 here. But I don't think that's crazy at all.
I don't think it's insane for sure. You might have to file it in the back of the reckless speculation file cabinet for sure. But God, I feel bad for those Minnesota fans, man. Good Lord. Obviously the Dane St. Clair stuff, now with Rosales gone, Oluwaseyi getting sold, Ramsey leaving and everything like that. It has been a rough start to this, season coming up here for them. And, like we talked about last year, we had a nice little budding rivalry going on with that team. So I can't be too upset to see him, potentially knock down a peg or two, but that is interesting. Interested to see how it looks with Josh on the other side of the bench there. If there's any,
we'll see if he's out there. He might still be in the booth, but I think he's going to be on the bench.
And it would make sense for Owen to come by, say what up to him and whatever, And so, all right, a little more spice.
Come on down to Farmer Field where the champions play. Get ready for the game. It's Lost Business Day.
Last business day here on episode 280 of the North End Podcast, Ian. We had a flurry of moves here for the second team in the latter parts of this week. First one reported was Austin FC 2 signing free agent forward Ibrahim Asal to a 2-year guaranteed deal through the end of the 27 season with an option for 2028. Keep in mind, NextPro has not announced an official schedule change for their league yet, so those contracts remain just with the full year seasons there. But this was a head scratcher in the sense of we have Vlad Danchuto. We have Peter Grogan. We just drafted forward Stefan Dobrihevich, right? So what are we doing signing Ibrahim Asal? Let's wrap this into this talk as well. Peter Grogan has signed with Athlone Town AFC back in his native Ireland. Now, Peter Grogan had 1 year remaining on his MLS Next Pro contract with the second team. And shout out to Logan Okwa once again. He had given us the heads up in the middle of the week that Peter Grogan was on trial this month with Sligo Rovers FC and also trained with Galway United this offseason. So he's been back in Ireland for a while now. We were kind of sitting on that from Logan, waiting to talk about it here today. But then Athlone Town AFC went ahead and signed Peter. I'm hoping we maybe got some compensation from them because he still had that 1 year guaranteed, but it was either a minor transfer or, we just released, mutual release there for Peter Grogan going back home, but 1 in, 1 out up top there. So welcome Ibrahim Asal. And look, thanks for the contributions, Peter Grogan. Cause dude, when Grogan was on, he was fiery and he could put it in the back of the net, right? It was a short stint here for Grogan, but I don't have much bad to say about the kid. We knew he was fiery, and that kind of maybe took him out of the lineup a little bit late last season. But I wish him all the best back in his homeland.
Yeah, it was a rocky kind of year for Grogan, but every time when he was locked in and focused and playing well, he was dangerous for sure. And we talked about some of the disciplinary things with him, and just didn't seem like he could ever really get a good, solid kind of footing here. So it looks like it's best for both parties to be moving on here. And I wish Peter well for sure, because I did enjoy watching him when he was locked in, because he was definitely, like you said, could put the ball in the back of the net.
So our other signing here for the second team was one of the crumbs we were trying to figure out throughout the week because goalkeeper Eric Lauta, who is a free agent coming into this preseason, he was training with the first team on Monday. He's been signed by the second team to a 2-year guaranteed deal through the end of 2027 with an option for 2028. So he will be out there competing for the starting spot with Charlie Farah. And with that, you can go to the northendpodcast.com, get to the roster sheets. We have our Austin FC2 contracts page posted now there to the sheets. They've been hidden for the last couple of weeks as we try to gather this information, wait for preseason schedule, which the second team put out. They start at the end of this month. All 5 of those are, of course, closed to the public as per usual. So we'll be trying to pick up some crumbs from the second team over the preseason here, but you can go and see where the second team roster stands as of now with what we know, right?
Mhm.
It's everything from like Pat Grishevsky last year, right? Signing with the second team, and they never released how long his contract was. So we still don't know. And Pat spent most of last season injured. So there's a lot of unknowns with a guy like Pat Grishevsky. We also have the first team loanees and academy players on amateur agreements still listed on the second team's roster page. But I think we should expect all of these to reset at the start of the league year here in Next Pro, right? So like we might not see a guy like Irvin Torres loaned down right away. We may see more academy players added to this list of amateur agreements, right? I think Sebastian Seiterle is one of the guys we should expect to get one of those amateur agreements here before the team starts. But for all the Austin FC2 sickos out there, you can go and check out what the roster's looking like here in mid to late January. Anything for you on this?
I mean, it's so wild to look at this roster and see how much it's changed from the championship team.
Yeah,
which we speculated because that being our first go with Next Pro and everything, and trying to learn, Division III soccer in the United States here, that we knew there was going to be quite a bit of turnover. But wow, that's a lot of new faces, a lot of new names.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's full turnover. Maybe outside of Micah and maybe Irvin, but like those guys didn't play a ton that year, right? Because it was an older ride. I think it's full turnover, at least from like those guys who we signed from outside of the system to come and join the roster. Also note, right, the two draft picks haven't been signed to either team yet, but just keep in mind that we have those rights and that those guys are most likely going to end up here with the second team. Anything else for you, E, on Austin FC2?
No, sir.
All right, so just want to close it out here today, as we have been doing here in January, with some more Patreon talk. If you want to join, that QR code is on the screen right now on the YouTube. Link to join is in the description of the audio episode. Just wanted to remind everyone, if you want to join in, right, you can still get that free North End Sicko shirt, the free logo sticker, by being one of the first 40 DP members. We're over that halfway mark now, if you want to get in at that level. And reminder that we're giving away that Austin FC team signed ball on opening day to all of our Patreon members. They are included right in that giveaway. And everything else that we offer, again, episode 278, you can, hear that whole spiel. If you've signed up already, and I know a lot of people already responded to this, but make sure you fill out those forms we've sent you through email, right, for your t-shirt sizes, your best ball draft night availabilities for those who are playing best ball. And also, I did want to note to the folks we already have in the Discord who have been asking some of those listener questions. We're going to get to those here next week, or might work some of those into the Green Smoke stream this week that we expect as well. But keep those coming, because those have been fun. We were discussing some of them last night, man, and I think again that's going to be just another fun addition from the Patreon side of things here in the North End that will just kind of enhance the discussion, allowing some of our Patreon members to drive that discussion here on the show.
I'm excited for it.
Anything else for you here, E, before we shut it down?
No, good.
All right, everybody. We appreciate you tuning in and sticking with us here. Almost an hour on episode 280 of the North End podcast. We are back next Sunday with our regularly scheduled episode. And again, hit that notification bell to know when a Green Smoke live stream may pop up here this week or throughout the rest of the preseason. Again, appreciate you tuning in, sticking with us here. We are back on Sunday. Enjoy your week, everybody. Until next Sunday, he is E, and I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.